see how we look like, positioning and everything. So darling, stay with me. Yeah, I'm just gonna be like Elvis. Darling, 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 stay with me. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 1. And yet again, Manchester United's inconsistencies are coming to the fore. And you want to know why? Because Manchester United are just not a good team. Or maybe they don't have good stewardship. Or maybe they just need an overhaul as far as the top all the way down to the bottom. What's up, guys? It's your boy Izzy. And if you're new to the channel, you know exactly what to do. Go ahead and hit that subscribe and that like button to let YouTube and everybody else know that you are enjoying this content. So we're going to talk about Manchester United. The game aside, because that's not really what Manchester United fans want to talk about right now. They want to talk about all the problems they've had this season. The very inconsistent performances. Marcus Rashford, all the way back to Onana. Players that can be hot and cold. Every single week, they can play well one day, and the very next time, the Manchester United fans couldn't do more than to blame them every single time they show up. So why is it that Manchester United cannot string 2 games of good performances together? Maybe it's Ten Hag's problem. And usually at this point, if the owners have had a bit too much to deal with when it comes to results, they always tend to pull the plug, and Ten Hag would have been the first one to go out. But the problem for Manchester United lies deeper than that. Their problem lies from the fact that their recruitment and their management and their stewardship all come together as one and make United not a good place to play in. So whenever you look at giants who are usually struggling, be it Juventus or if at one point it was Barcelona at this juncture, usually a lot of these teams tend to have one significant issue. It tends to be a disconnect between management and players. And Manchester United have that, and they also have to contend with the fact that the fan base is completely falling out of love with the team. Today's performance was nothing less than most people expected. They go to a very tough ground, one that can give them continuous problems, and guess what they do? They falter, just like each and every other time that they've given their fan base just a glimmer of hope for them to think that, hey, we might actually be good today. And so after the first half that had ended up goalless, it could have been a game that could have gone either whichever way. It could have been a Nottingham Forest win, or it could have been a Manchester United win. But simply because of the fact that Manchester United played very timidly in this game, and they almost looked as though they were trying to preserve the point rather than be the Manchester United that we have known for years that goes out and tries to win the game, they ended up losing. It was almost orchestrated by a player who right now is a former Manchester United player and looks as though he's thriving somewhat at Nottingham Forest. And I'm talking about Elanga, who was a winger that Manchester United deemed surplus to requirement and replaced with Anthony, the aforementioned player that I was talking about who cost Manchester United upwards of £80 million. So when you look at the recruitment that Manchester United have done over the last year, a lot of that is going to lay at the foot of Erik ten Hag, because he had wanted these players in the team, and whether or not he is able to get them to fire and do exactly what they're supposed to do is another thing. But the fact that these players also have to go out there and play their part and show why this team valued them enough to pay that amount of money is going to be very important and integral to them being successful at that club. So when you have players such as Anthony and Sancho, who are not either playing to their level or just because of the ego in the case of Sancho not playing at all, you have to question the fact that whether it was Manchester United's scouting base or the people who recommended these players to Ten Hag, or whether or not he was the one who decided to go after them, you have to question whether the choices that were made to bring in these players was the right choice. Because you can never remember a Manchester United squad, at least as far as memory serves me, that would go out and not give anything less than 100%. Because they had a steward in Alex Ferguson who did not encourage players to play anything less than 100%. So whenever you think about these types of games and whether or not Manchester United can be consistent every once in a while, you need to figure in the fact that some of the problems are not just only from a managerial standpoint, but we also need to question some of the players and their dedication to what is put out front of them. Now, maybe you can say Onana is not good enough, and maybe you can say Anthony is not good enough, but you would hope that somebody, as far as their recruitment, could have been able to spot this earlier enough. You don't see these kind of problems whenever Pep Guardiola is associated with a club, or you never see this with Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, because these people, even if it was the fact that maybe they concentrated much more on the recruitment of players and then their integration in the team, they trusted somebody out there enough to go and scout these players and bring that information to them. And then at the same time, you also have to look at the fact that their discernment plays a big part in whether this player needs to play or not. So when we talk about Manchester United losing 2-1 to Nottingham Forest, you have to start thinking about a multivariate reason as to why they put in the performance that they put in today, which was a clear night and day compared to what they were able to do at home to Aston Villa, a title-chasing team or a top-four rival, as it would be right now, compared to what they played to today when they timidly lost to Nottingham Forest 2-1. I didn't come out with a pre-match preview or, my predictions for this week. I would tell you that I thought that Manchester United would probably lose this game. And it's easy to say that in hindsight because they eventually did lose it. I also did think that they would lose the game to Aston Villa, but they still managed to come out on top on that. One of the problems that they tend to have in these games is they are so Jekyll and Hyde between both performances that you never really know what to expect from them. And that is where Manchester United's problem lies. The inconsistency that is coming from all of these different managerial changes, because we had Jose Mourinho as a manager, we had Van Gaal as a manager, and we had Solskjaer as a manager. It almost seems as though these managers hit a certain roadblock. And when they hit that roadblock, it seems as though the players cannot perform. I don't want to call them out by saying that they are not performing for the manager, because we've seen them time and again come back from situations where you thought Ten Hag was definitely gone. But this very inconsistent run of form is what is going to make sure that he is going to eventually lose his job. And I also want to say that I don't 100% blame him for what's happening to Manchester United, because he can only do but so much on the sidelines. At times, you have to trust in the people that you put on the field to be able to deliver. And they're not just doing that. But I also want to have a little side note for Nottingham Forest, who I had made a little video a bit after their performance, and I had praised them for what they did against Newcastle at St. James's Park, going to a very tough ground against a Newcastle team who were admittedly tired, but still had most of the people that you would expect them to play in that game. And they performed very well. And such was the feeling after Steve Cooper leaving the team, that you thought that whoever has to come in is going to have to get this team running, because they were starting to fall very close down to the relegation zone. So 2 games on the bounce. And if you look at the names that they were able to take down in Newcastle and Manchester United, you got to give them some praise. Whatever Espirito Santo had been telling them over during the week, as well as right before this game and in the middle of this game, for them to perform as well as they have in these last 2 games has to be commended. And considering all of the things that Nottingham Forest have gone through this season, and the fact that they're seeing a lot of the teams below them start to put in some performances, I have to really respect the fact that they got themselves up for 2 games that would previously have been thought of as 2 consecutive losses. And 2 of the hardest games that you think they would face in a season, they have come out on top. Things are going to get much harder for them, and eventually this new manager bounce is going to drop, and it's going to be the measure of the players that he chooses to put forth, as well as his own managerial acumen in getting these players up for these games, that is going to be the determinant between Nottingham Forest staving off relegation or being relegated. But for right now, the future looks a little more stable, and if they're able to churn out performances like this, the sky's the limit for Nottingham Forest. But let me know what you guys think. I know I spent a lot of time talking about what Manchester United need to do and the disconnect, because today's game gave off a feeling of a team that just doesn't have confidence or doesn't have any knowledge of how to go out. And there seems to be a very clear disconnect between the management and the players, and above the management, the ownership. And sometimes whenever Manchester United come out and try to play, they always seem to give these very putrid performances, just like the one they gave out today, that makes you wonder if they are ever going to get out of this funk. But it's been your boy Izzy. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday night. I am. And until next time, guys, peace.